Discover the best-kept secrets from the leading entrepreneurs across the globe. Learn from the greatest minds in business with the MyCoda Podcast. Here's your host, Sam Payne.
Hi everybody, what's going on? My name's Sam Payne and welcome to the MyCoda Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today for our fourth session. We've got one of the coolest guys I've interviewed so far for the show. Rohan Gilkes is a serial entrepreneur. He's founded 6 successful online companies. He's an online brand expert and an expert in online business startups. Now, Rohan is completely transparent with all of his businesses and he documents all the highs, the lows, the things that have worked for him, the things that haven't worked for him. He even documents his income reports every single month. So he's got a great following of people who are genuinely interested in learning from Rohan's experiences with his own companies. And the interview today was so much fun and it was so cool to just get into Rohan's head and understand how he does it. I mean, the guy is unreal. He was born in Barbados from a very deprived background. I mean, he was brought up in poverty almost in a very poor area of Barbados, and he's just gone from a very, very humble beginning all the way to a serial entrepreneur with 6 companies and just making hundreds of thousands of dollars every single month. Now, like I say, this interview was an absolute pleasure to do with Rohan because for myself, I've got ties to Barbados, which I love that country. It's like a second home for me. I mean, my grandparents, they moved, they holidayed out there for the best part of 20 years, or started holidaying there. Maybe, I mean, unfortunately, my granddad, as my grandfather passed about 8 years ago now, but he was an entrepreneur himself, had his own companies, grew up with nothing, and made very successful businesses, and he done very well for himself. You know, him and my nan, they holidayed in Barbados. Maybe must have been 25, nearly 30 years ago now, and they fell in love with the place and bought a house out there. And ever since then, we've been very fortunate to be able to go out to Barbados on regular occasions and really enjoy the culture and the country out there. And it is just an amazing place. So to interview Rohan, and because I know where he's came from, I've seen the areas he was brought up in, and it's just amazing to see how someone's come from that all the way through to where he is today. So I'm going to leave the intro here, guys, because you're going to love this. You are going to love this interview, okay? He gives a lot of detail into his income, into how he manages his businesses, how he sets them up, how he finds his staff. He goes on about a lot of key points that basically will help you set up your own companies and run your own companies. So enjoy this one, guys. Chill out, relax, get your notepads out, take some notes, and I'll leave it here. Here is session 004 of the MyCoda Podcast. Hi, Rohan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for coming on today. I know you're very busy, so we really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Just for the people out there who may not be familiar with you, could you just please introduce yourself and what it is you do?
Sure. My name is Rohan Gilkes, and I build internet companies of a fairly varied type. So I do e-commerce companies, product. I do service companies. I do SaaS projects. I just kind of see where I can find opportunities online to build a company, and we build it and grow it quickly, and sometimes we blog about the process as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I loved your site as well and how you document everything you go through. I think it's so good how transparent you are with all your companies. So we're going to touch on that as well later on in the interview. But for the start, the theme of this podcast is all about business startups. So if you could just take us back to when you first started out with your first company, what change took place in you that made you decide to become an entrepreneur and start your own business?
Sure, yeah. So I was an accountant, so that's what I went to school for. And I did that for about 10 years. And I feel like I hated it from day number 2, from the first time I started. But I felt I was stuck. I I did this college degree, and I was thinking about. I had dreams of a corporate job and getting promoted to manager or VP or that's what my mind was like when I
Yeah.
started out. And then as I got further into my career, I realized that this is not something that made me happy, and I felt like I wanted to be free, like have the freedom to decide what to do with my time and how to, and where in the world I want to be and so on. And with that, I started looking at figuring out how to build companies online because I was broke, so it had to be an online company. There's very low startup costs, which is perfect for where I was financially at the time. And I started spending all my time learning all I could about internet marketing, branding, copywriting, customer acquisition, conversion optimization, all those things that come like second nature now. I had no idea about any of them, but I learned and I tried different things, and I started to figure out a bit of how to make money online. But yeah, I started with all types of projects like eBay affiliates. I did Amazon affiliate work. I did like local affiliate stuff. I did blogs, all types of things I tried. A dating site. I was all over the place, man. But I was learning. I was learning as I was implementing these ideas that I got online, and then I got better to start actually making money.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You touched on the point which I was going to ask the question on. You said you was learning, and then you started making the money. So, how long did that process take from going out and trying to learn these new skills to the point where you actually started monetizing and making money from your first business?
Yeah, so I would say that it was probably about 9 months or so. But in that 9 month period, what I did was whenever I learned something that I felt like could work, um, I would actually implement it. So I would say, okay, there is a chance for me to find an electrician in my area, call him up or her, and say, I can send you more business. Would you pay me each time I got you a phone call of some person looking for business? Most people would say yes. And then I went out and started figuring out AdWords and put up a website and started driving traffic to it and getting them to call for local electrician service. And I made money that way. But I think what separated me from a lot of people that spend time online learning and reading blogs is that I didn't just gather the information. Every time I got some cool information, I would actually try it out. I would actually implement it.
Yeah.
And so that period of time of me trying a whole host of things was about 9 months or so.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing advice to give someone because I think you're right. Well, I know you're right. Half the problem with people going out and trying to do this themselves is they just consume so much content and they don't act on it. So by the time it comes to acting on it, they've forgot what they've consumed in the first place. That there's nothing like action to teach you how to implement these processes. So I think that's an amazing piece of advice for people. And in that process, you said it took you about 9 months to get to that point where you first started earning money.
Yeah.
Was you still working in that corporate environment and doing this on the side, or did you just fully immerse yourself in this in your own companies to learn this full time?
No, I was still working in corporate environment, and that's another thing too. Like I still had a full-time job, but I would spend as much time as possible before work, even at lunchtime. After work, I would go to this coffee shop and stay there until like midnight, like working on my little projects and stuff. So yeah, I did it while having a full-time job.
Yeah, and I think that your story is very common amongst guys that are just starting out, especially people that I'm speaking to with the consultancy company I've set up as well. And people really find it hard to juggle that time. So what advice would you give to people on how to manage their time when they are in that corporate environment and struggle to find that balance between being absolutely exhausted from their day job and still finding that energy to work on their own business?
Yeah, so for me, man, and I'm glad you asked this question because for me, I look at this process of starting a business as really parallel to I would like to, like, I'm in a situation right now where I'm not free, and I want to become free. I feel I'm working for my freedom. So with that, I just do not have the free time to watch Game of Thrones or go to nightclubs or go to the beach. Like for me, I feel like it takes an almost obsessive type personality to cut out extracurricular activities, and it takes about a year. Well, it took me about a year of cutting out all of my extra time where I would have fun and just immerse myself completely into the process. And then after a year of doing that, I sacrificed that 1 year. But then after that, now I can do anything I want. I can be anywhere in the world I want at any time, for as long as I want, completely free. And so it's like a year of sacrifice for like the rest of your life. So I think the time is there, but people just have to have that mindset change where they become completely obsessive for a really, really short time. And it really pays off long term if you can work smartly and build something that works out.
Yeah, and another point which I think a lot of people get so wrapped up in that process of trying to learn everything and immerse themselves in anything, they don't enjoy it anymore, and it almost becomes a chore. So did you actually enjoy coming away from that corporate job and starting to go back into your own business and learning this stuff? Was it something that you took pleasure in, or was it a chore for you at any point?
I felt like I do think it was enjoyable because it's almost like every day I was like this scientist conducting these psychological experiments, and the result of the experiments was either I could convince another human being to pull out their credit card and buy something from me, or not, and I would learn a lot about myself and my skill sets and my communication skills and my choice of colors and all these other things. I will learn a lot about myself in the process, regardless of if people bought or not. I was learning something. So that whole thing about, testing and measuring and figuring things out and being creative, it was almost like a game that was being played out where you can actually look at the score at any point. The score was how many people you could create value for, how much money you could make, how many people would sign up for your email list, like whatever it is. There's all these different metrics, but it was really more like a game that was fun to play, and it's still fun to play. Yeah,
Like a real life Monopoly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good analogy. Yeah.
And at any point during that process, did you ever feel like giving up?
I don't think so. I definitely went through some lows. So I went through lows because I started like service businesses too. Like one of the companies I started with was like when I got comfortable with AdWords, I started saying, okay, let me reach out to local companies and see if I could do AdWords work for them. And I did work for one guy, and things worked out really well. And then he didn't pay me.
Yeah, that worked out well.
Yeah, it worked out really well for him. And like that was like a super low for me. But all those things were like lessons that I learned from, and I didn't feel like giving up, but I did go through some low points. And I think that's going to happen with almost anybody that goes down this road of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I've even myself personally, I've experienced some real, especially when it gets to like early hours in the morning and nothing's quite going your way. It's, that's when you want to throw the towel in sometimes. So you've got 6 companies. How long did it take you to go from the point of finishing that sort of learning period you talked about after 9 months and setting up that first company? How quick was your growth rate from that point to actually where you are now, where you've got 6 successful companies?
Yeah, so all of this started a little over. We're going to be is like 4.5 years ago. So everything, like, well, actually, everything started like 5.5 years ago. 4.5 years ago, I started the company that was my first big win. And that first big win was a simple local cleaning company. And it's really like a platform that would connect cleaners with people that wanted their homes cleaned. And that was my first big win. And then after working about 2 years straight in that company to build it up, we got to over $2 million per year in revenue. Then I was able to say, okay, like I don't see myself working in a cleaning project forever. Like, I wanted to do other things, and I started solving some of my own other problems. So I built like a SaaS company that allowed local service businesses to manage their entire credit card processes and their schedule and so on. So that was like solving one of my problems, and I created a SaaS company around that, and then started just building additional companies. But it kind of like just is all happening in the last 5.5 years, with 4.5 years ago being my first big win.
Yeah, that's still. I mean, even that 4.5 time period, even 5.5 years. That's an insane growth rate, especially to set up that many successful companies. I don't really interview many guys that have done that. So, I mean, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But when could you just touch on each of your companies and just give us an insight as to what each of those do? Because I think it's going to be good for people to understand how diverse these companies are across the board. So could you just break down quickly what your companies are called and a little bit about what each of those do?
Sure. So the first one is Maids in Black. So you can go online and get your book a home cleaning service, and show up and clean your home, and it's all online. So we accept your credit card online and process the payment and so on. It's a pretty seamless experience that a lot of traditional companies do not have. So we have this competitive advantage from the time we launched, and that did really well. And then Lawn Tribe, which is very similar to Maids in Black, except the service is lawn care. And people come online again and they select how many hours of lawn care they would like. And we show up, do the work, charge their credit card. So that was another competitive advantage again, because very few companies allow for this seamless online booking, which is very popular with millennials. So we did that. Then, as I built Maids in Black and Lawn Tribe, I felt like as they were getting bigger, I felt I needed some software to run the business, to make it like super easy to do business with us and to manage like thousands of customers and so on. And there was nothing out there that I really liked, so I built this platform. It's called Launch27.com. I built it for myself at first, and then other people were like, "Man, we really would like to use it." And I turned it into a subscription SaaS project where multiple people, we probably have like probably close to 500 companies now using that platform, and they pay a monthly fee to use it. And then we did Groove Jar. So Groove Jar is one of our newer companies, but it's pretty fun. So if you have an e-commerce business and some person comes to your website, there are certain things that you want them to do, either give you their email or buy something or whatever. And Groove Jar is like a set of tools that you can install to run pop-ups, or they're basically conversion optimization tools that people can add to their website, just copy and paste and design them and make it look really, really nice for pop-ups and slide unders and like all this other cool stuff to increase conversions on your website. That's Groove Jar. And then Groove Hiring is the last one. And that's really around how can we hire people in a seamless way. So some person will come to our website, they will come to a form, they will fill out the form, they will answer all these questions, they will get to a point where they can record a video of themselves, so kind of like getting an idea of who they are even before you set up the first interview. So that's Groove Hiring. And so these additional companies we've built, they have been built out of necessity. As we've done more and more e-commerce stuff, we've seen these things that we needed, and we built them for ourselves first, and then let other people use them for a fee. And then the last one I almost forgot is Wet Shave Club. That's like a subscription box company that sends shaving goods every month. So it's like all kind of random stuff, but really and truly, they're really very much the same in that a person is coming to your website, they want to use a product or service that solves their problems. We provide that product or service, and we let them purchase it in a very seamless way. And that's what we do from industry to industry, product or service. It doesn't matter.
That's, do you know, that's really, really, like you say, they link. Although they're different, they have got that link between them, haven't they? Which is really crucial to this next part of the question, I suppose. Because one, you talk about competitive advantage a lot there, and I think this is something people fail to recognise when they're setting up their companies, because they do it almost because they feel it's a good idea and they'd love that themselves, so it's worth doing. But how did you go about finding out how you was going to have that competitive advantage? What advice would you give guys who want to find that competitive advantage in a niche they're looking to go into?
Yeah, so that's a really good one. I feel like there are some patterns right now that you can probably see. Like here's how I would approach it, and this may seem kind of weird. So there's like two sets of companies that are being built right now. One of them is being built by just regular folks like myself. And, I started in my living room, you just need your computer, access to the internet, and the ability to either reach out to a product provider or a service provider and have them provide their product or service on your platform, like whatever that is. That's kind of how businesses are being built, right from your living room, nothing fancy. Then the other set of companies that are being built are companies that are going through startup incubators. They're raising like millions of dollars from venture capitalists. They're like super sophisticated. They have like the best of the best people to do A/B testing and all this stuff. Like super sophisticated companies that are focused on growth and so on. So that's like Group B. So my take is, if I'm a Group A person, just a regular person trying to figure out the world, I'm going to spend some time looking at these Group B companies that I know have done all the research and have done all the demographic data and all that stuff. And I'll look at some of the stuff that they're doing and see how they're doing things differently. And there's so many ideas there because these guys have already spent all this time doing all this research. And I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want the closest path to success. So I look at these companies. I look at how they brand. I look at how they communicate. I look at the checkout flow of their website. I look at how they approach solving problems. I look at the upsells that they sell, that they add on to their products or services, all this stuff. And that allows us to then be better than most of the other Group A companies, like regular people companies. So that's just one trick that I use, but man, it works really well.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial piece of advice for anyone that is listening, because, in fact, I'll pause for a second if I need to, note that down. I think because most people really do fail to recognise how to do that, and if they can nail that, I mean, the rest of it will be so much easier. So, and you talked about going, you set up a software service which was for your own companies before you even launched it to the market. But how did you go through that process of going through providing a service to building a software product? Because that's quite a big transition and something that's not that easy to do for someone who doesn't really know how to do it. So if someone is already got a company or they're providing a service and they're thinking of doing something very similar, how do you advise them to go about finding the right people to then carry out that process and create a software service?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question, and I agree. It's a challenge, and it's even more challenging for some person like me that I am not a coder at all. I can't write code, so it's even a bigger challenge. But what I ended up doing was two things. One, finding some person to partner with that really understands web software development, and having them manage the side of the business that has to do with coding and all the technical stuff. So I found a guy through a friend, and we decided to split the company pretty much 50-50. And then we went on Odesk, which most people have heard of. Well, actually, I think it's Upwork now. And we found who we thought were really, really, really good web coders, really, really good developers, and hired them to work on the project. And it worked out. I don't want to jump all the way to it worked out, but I'll say that because I had my partner who's a technical guy, he was able to write really, really good requirements, and we were able to create an MVP very, very quickly, and then have people sign up for that MVP and start paying us a monthly fee. So very soon we were able to use the money that our subscribers were paying us to pay for our development. And then we were able to build the company and build it and build it and build it. And now I think now we're at about 30,000 per month in revenue, and that's going to be a lot bigger in the next 12 to 24 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and I think another important point I want to touch on from what you just said there was, I think the term MVP is misinterpreted a lot when people were putting one together. Did your MVP resemble the service that you was going to provide at the end product stage? Or was it something that was completely scaled back that didn't really resemble what it actually does now?
So that's a good question, and I'm glad you brought it up too, because I think MVP is sometimes misapplied when people are like pursuing things like this. So like for us, we think of like, if you're trying to like build a car, your first version is still going to be a car that works. It's still going to be, it's not going to be like
with pedals.
Yeah, exactly. It's still going to be a car that works. It may not be a Tesla. It's maybe not be super sophisticated. It's not going to have that auto drive and self parking. It's not going to have all that fancy stuff, which I can say that we probably have now with Launch 27 since we've been doing it for a while. But the first version is still going to be drivable. It's still going to be something that is roadworthy and that people would pay for. And that's what we spent time doing. But without it being extra pretty and without it having all these bells and whistles. Yeah. The first version still looks like the last version, but the last version is just solved so many more problems than the first version did.
And the problems that it's solving now, did you realize at the start where you was creating the MVP that you wanted to solve those problems, or was that something you learned over time whilst developing it and getting feedback off people?
Yeah, definitely the second one. The second one. There's so many different it's like you're providing a service for hundreds of people, and each person has an idea for how this thing could probably work better. And so there's like two extremes. Like you could either like completely like take every single idea and try to implement it, or you can realize, okay, these are some of the pain points that multiple people are expressing to us as being difficult for them. And these pain points, I would never have foreseen like 85% of them. I would never have foreseen them. So so this is another advantage of getting customers on board very, very quickly, even if it's for free. Having customers on board quickly and getting their feedback is gonna like really impact how successful the project becomes.
Yeah, and with setting up so many different companies, I mean, they all offer a different service and they all have a different function. Like some are services and some are software products. In the startup phase of each of those companies, did you face similar challenges, or did each one present their own different challenges every single time?
Yeah, that's good. I think there's a bit of both. Like, so the original challenges is kind of finding like this original challenge is pretty much the same for each one, and that's like, how do you find a product market fit. Like how can you make sure that what you're putting out to the world is what the world wants, and it connects with each individual, or it connects with your target market. So that beginning part of it is often weird. You put out something and you don't really know the price that works. You don't really know how you should communicate it. The checkout flow is kind of weird, or maybe it's not weird. You don't really know. But we use some of our prior experience to and put that into our new companies. But sometimes it may still be off. So in the beginning is often weird, but you're able to figure out very, very quickly based on if people are making purchases or not, if people are like how they're communicating their problems, if their checkout is fine, and so on. You can get feedback very, very, very quickly and improve. But that beginning stage is really the same regardless of what company we launch. And then as we go deeper into companies, each one will present its unique challenges. Some things are very, very clear to communicate. Some things we need video, and we need coaching, and we need ways to walk people through the platform to make it user friendly, and so on. So like it's a combination of the same challenges each time at the beginning, and then as we get deeper, each platform provides its own challenges as well.
Yeah, and I mean, going through that process so many times and facing so many different challenges, is this something that you was able to do by yourself, or did you take on any mentors or coaches for yourself at any point during this process?
So what I didn't take on like mentors or coaches, but and I'm not saying that that's a bad idea either. There's some people that are having a coach and having a mentor and having people that have done it before is very, very helpful to be at least part of a group or something to kind of help you out when you need it, because you will need it. So like one of the things we did is early on we started being very, very transparent about what we're building. And what that did was allowed us to create a Facebook group of other business-minded people and business owners, entrepreneurs, and startup tech guys, and so on. So these are folks that we were able to lean on or get assistance. Like, hey, like, what's the best hosting for this type of project? Okay, maybe Amazon hosting is really, really good. I had never even known that Amazon did hosting back then. So we kind of built like what is really like what do you call it? Kind of like just a group of people that we can lean on, and they can lean on us, and that was really, really helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, that moves me on to a point nicely, actually, because I saw on your site you're part of the Young Entrepreneurs Council.
Yeah.
Now, this, for the guys who don't know anything about this, could you just tell us a little bit about this quickly? Because I don't think many people will be familiar with this.
Okay. Yeah, so Young Entrepreneurs Council is a group of young entrepreneurs that is like super cool. Like first, in order to get in, you have to have $1 million in annual revenue in your company and be under 40 years old. And so it kind of like ends up being a pretty exclusive group, I guess. But it's really beneficial because you can then reach out to people that are building all different types of companies all over the world and get advice and help and get press for your company when you launch. And it's really, really, really cool.
Yeah, and this, I mean, considering everyone's got to earn a certain amount of revenue to and be under a certain age and everything else, it means that this is a high-performing network of pretty amazing entrepreneurs, to be fair. Mm-hmm. So how important do you feel it is to associate yourself with the right people and getting in with the right networks?
Yeah, man. Like, I think it's critical. Like there's some people like me that I could like just go in a room and stay in there for like 3 months, and when I come out, maybe I have something that works, right? And I can do that now, and it's kind of like how I operate. But I know that especially in the beginning, like if you have not built a successful company yet, I would advise people to spend as much time as possible around people that have done that or are also working towards the same goals. It becomes just motivation and the energy and the creativity and just the movement is like it feels really really good, and it helps with the actual outcome. So yeah, I would definitely advise it, like even if it's a Facebook group or connecting with people through the podcast that you're doing, whatever is like super cool, man. It's
Yeah.
helpful. It's like helpful.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I get in as many of these groups as I can and go to as many events as I can. And since I've started doing that, like I say, it just helps to have that person to just send a quick Facebook message to or something, then trying to dig and find an answer because you've already got those people around you that know what they're doing. So, I mean, and have you had any new opportunities present themselves since you've been part of this, the Entrepreneurs Council?
Well, things that came out of the Entrepreneurs Council. One of the cool things that they do is they have this thing called what is it called? I can't remember what it's called, but basically they have these relationships with like Forbes and Fortune and all these different like really well known publications, and if Forbes or Fortune is looking for an article or a guest post or a quote or something from an entrepreneur, they reach out to the Young Entrepreneurs Council and say, hey, like, do you have any person that has a SaaS project or some person in subscription box or retail or e-com, like all these different things. And then it allows you to get all this press where you can talk about your company and so on. So this becomes a real benefit. So I've done a couple of those as well. So yeah, it's just pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really cool. And like you touched on earlier, you're very transparent especially on your main site where you got your blog, because you actually highlight your monthly income, much like you've got John Lee Dumas does it, Pat Flynn does it as well. Mm-hmm. So what made you decide to do that?
Yeah, so after my first big win, actually not even after, in the middle of it, I just felt like as I was trying to figure things out online, I felt like there wasn't a lot of transparency. So like I would see a startup company, I was like, man, that's super cool, but I would never know like how did they do it? How did they go from zero to like $5 million a year in like 2 years or 1 year or something? I don't know. So like I felt like I wanted to put stuff out there, but I wanted to do it in a way where people could come away and have answers that I did not have when I was going through it. So just because of that, I was like, for each company we build, we go in and we show people exactly like, okay, here's how we approach marketing, branding, customer, like here's how we do it completely. Here are some of the ads that we run. Here's our revenue. Here's our growth. Here's our customer numbers. Like, I enjoy that process, and I enjoy being different in that I'm not trying to like keep things secret, because there's really no need, So yeah, that's just my thing. I feel that the benefits outweigh any negatives.
Yeah, no, I love that you do it, and because I love that Pat Flynn done it. It's what really got me intrigued into Pat Flynn in the first place. Actually, was seeing how he broke down his income reports. So, do you feel that it's benefited the guys that are following you by seeing those income reports? Do you think it instills a lot more confidence in you as a coach or a mentor for them?
I think so. Yes. One, it does that, and it makes people that have been following me at the point when I was doing $4,000 a month, and then doing like a couple $100,000 a month now. They're like, okay, like I remember this guy, like just a regular guy. I was following him 3 years ago when they were barely starting out, 4 years ago when there was nothing, and now they see the growth and the time that we put in, and they can go back and read the blogs and see what we did to get there. So a lot of people have started businesses based on the stuff that we have written, and built other really big businesses as well. Like several other $1 million companies have started based on the stuff that we've written. So I think it not only gives people the confidence, but it gives them the practical ability to say, okay, let me go back and read all these things and implement them and do well. So it's been pretty cool, and it's a really good feeling.
Yeah, I bet. And you say like I think it's important for people to see that journey actually from going from, like, say, $4,000 of revenue a month up to over $200,000 where you're at now. Because I think a lot of people expect that after launching a company online, it's just going to work and people are just going to start putting money in their pocket. So, I mean, you say your first big win was it with the Made in Black company, your first big win?
Yeah, that was the first big one. Mm-hmm.
If you could just take us back to, like, quarterly, the 3-month, the 6-month, the 9-month, the 12-month point. I mean, at what point did it really take off and did you start earning some good money with that? How slow or quickly was that growth of income?
Yeah, so we hit 10,000 in revenue, in monthly revenue, in month number 4. In month 4, because it was April, that was actually when I made my first post. We were at 10,000 in revenue. By August, we were at 50,000 in monthly revenue. So from April to August, we went from 10,000 per month to 50,000 per month. And that's when I quit my job.
Yeah.
So it took me like 8 to 9 months to go from 0 to quitting my job. But man, I worked every single waking minute every single waking minute I worked. Weekends, I was like I couldn't wait for the weekends because I knew I could do 24 hours of work in the weekend. And then, you know, I literally worked more hours in the business than I worked at my real job, which was also 40 hours per week. So that, you know, that's something that I want to get across, that it's a real sacrifice, especially if you have another job. It's a real sacrifice, but it's doable. It's really, really doable too. So
yeah, that's insane. I mean, because most people consider 40 hours a week, that's it, their job's done. They can go home and put their feet up.
Yeah.
And I think actually, because a lot of people, they don't see the time in the dirt that it took you that long to dig out a massive hole and get to a point where you was earning that money. So I think it's really important for people to realise that journey, you know.
Yeah.
And with 6 companies, I mean, you must be extremely busy all the time trying to manage 6 companies. And most people struggle with one. So how do you manage your time so you can give each company the time it needs to be a success?
That's a good question. I think that I like to say it like this way: like I'm not really managing 6 companies as much as I'm managing 6 people. And so for each company, there's a person that is in charge of that company. And they may be an equity partner or they may be a general manager. And my time is spent communicating with them, getting data and reports, making sure that the company's on track as far as revenue growth goes and as far as customer satisfaction goes and so on. So I'm really spending my time having these conversations every day with 6 people. And so, like, when you look at it that way, it sounds a lot less daunting, and it really is, because, you know, they are concerned with all the minutia, and I'm just concerned with the higher level health of the company and higher level strategy and so on. But I'm not concerned with all the little day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, so I think that's another massive mistake guys setting up their own companies are making, where they're spending so much time working in their company that they don't take themselves away from that situation to see the bigger picture. So how important do you feel it is to build a team around you? And 2 questions off that, really. 1, how do you find the right people to put in that team? And 2, how quickly do you try and implement that process?
Yeah. So I'll answer the second one first. Like, as quickly as you can is for me is the answer, because you're right. Some people, like, I've talked to people that, okay, they started a cleaning company, online cleaning company, and they spend their time actually in the clients' homes cleaning. So I'm like, how are you ever going to build a business? Like, it's not even possible. Like, I've built a cleaning company and I have never cleaned a single home in my life. You know, and that's how you're going to build a business, because the real business is the business. It's the strategy, the marketing, the branding, customer acquisition, the growth. That's the business. The operations is just one subset of the business. That if you spend your time in that space, you would never spend your time. You would never be able to build a huge company. So as quickly as possible is the answer for me. As quickly as money allows you to hire some person to manage the daily minutia, and you can get out and handle strategy and use your time in really building the business. And the first question, how I found these people, you're probably going to laugh, but the answer is Craigslist.
Okay.
Yes. The answer is Craigslist. So what we found is like, okay, we started looking at hiring people to work in the company and to become managers and work customer service and so on. And we started looking at all these different platforms like, monster.com and Indeed and all that stuff. And I have not had the best results I've had is Craigslist. I would go on Craigslist and I would say, okay, we are a tech startup company and we're looking for people that have that type of tech startup mentality, people that are hustlers. And one thing we say is, and this is not my idea, I got this from somewhere else, I can't remember, but one thing we say is, we're not, like send us something telling us about yourself. You can send us anything except a resume.
Nice.
Yeah, so we found that, you can send a resume, it's all cool, but it doesn't really tell you much about the person. Like, we're not looking for, I have a degree in this thing, and then, I can come do this thing because I have a degree. Like, for us, that's, like, meaningless. What we're looking for is, does this person have the personality that gels with our team? Do they have the work ethic and the creativity and the hustle? So if they send us a cool video of themselves, like, performing some performance somewhere, or poetry, or a PowerPoint presentation, it tells us a lot more about the person than a resume does. And when those people come in and we connect and we have the entire team interview them, not just myself, but the entire team interviews them, and then we end up having some person that we can work with, and things have really worked out. And the best place we found for that is Craigslist.
Yeah, that's just such a simple solution to a problem.
Yeah.
And I mean, you say, because I think a lot of people get very emotionally attached to their business, especially when it's something they've set up themselves. Did you feel that you had to put emotions aside when hiring people and bringing people in to run your companies for you?
Yeah, man. Solid question, for real. So if you are, like, some people see business as like, this is my baby, right? So I want to be I want to be like what do you call it? Like a helicopter mom or something, where you're like, every little thing the baby does, like, they go out to school, and as they come back, they have a little bruise on their elbow, and they're like, they're completely crazy about that. Like, that's not how you are able to. If you're like that, you're not gonna be able to build a business properly. You have to be more objective and remove emotions, and just say and look at things that very, very clearly, and say, okay, this is where we are, this is where we need to get to. What's the best way to get to this thing? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to hire people that are maybe not good. They're not going to work out, and that's fine. That's going to give us more information on the next time we hire, we're going to do a better job, because we're not going to make the same mistake again. And that's how I look at it. But you can't look at it as a baby that you have to protect, because it's going to be very, very difficult to make the decisions that you have to make to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great advice. That's great advice. And I want to touch on your background a bit, especially where you grew up and where you've come from, because I found your story especially interesting, that your roots are back in Barbados. That's where you was born and brought up. Because I mean, I've actually got ties to Barbados myself. I've had family members that have lived out there for years, and I love that country. It's like a second home to me almost. So, but it's not all glitz and glam in Barbados. There are some real, quite rough, run-down areas in Barbados. So, could you just tell us a little bit about where you started off in Barbados, and just how does someone go from a tiny island in the Caribbean to becoming a successful entrepreneur in the USA? I mean, how did that journey go?
Yeah, and it's been a crazy journey, but you're right. Barbados, when people think of Barbados, or people think of the Caribbean, they think of this beautiful tourist place, and you go and you chill by the white sand beaches, and all that is true. But then actually living there, there is, some real poverty. And I grew up in poverty in Barbados, not in a great neighborhood by any means. Things are a lot better now, but I felt like I was always like a person that was like creative. So I did well in school, and then I got a scholarship to come to the U.S. to study, based on my grades. And so, that was obviously a major change in my life because, coming to the U.S., like, I was like, man, you're like, you hear that this is the land of opportunity and so on. And you feel like, like once you get here, like you have a chance to do something major. And I just kind of like got sucked into, well, the major thing for me will be to become a really good corporate employee and work at a really nice bank or something. Like that's kind of like what my thinking was at the time. And as I was here longer, I realized that yes, there's a lot of opportunity here, but I feel like the opportunity is really in becoming an entrepreneur because you have such a large market. So back home, we have like 250,000 people. In the U.S., it's like 300 million or something people, and they have disposable income, and they like partying, and they like buying back their time, and they like comforts, and so there's a real opportunity to build a business here. And I was just determined to do something big and to be able to help my family out back home. And so I was always motivated from day one. It just took me some time to figure out where to pour those motivations into, and I ended up being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that story. Yeah, I love that. And we're running a bit short of time now, so we're going to just wrap it up with a couple more questions. I like to ask everyone this question when they come on, because I've had some great answers on this one, actually. And for you, it's finally, if you had to give one piece of advice to someone that is just starting out today, what would it be and why?
Yeah, so one piece of advice would be something like this. Start something. So like here's what a lot of people do. They're like, I would like to move from like, okay, so like I would like to travel from New York to the UK on vacation or something, right? And so like the analogy of like this is what the process would be for like building a company. I would like to go on vacation in the UK. And a lot of people sit down and say, let me research the weather in the UK, that's fine. Let me research the demographics. Let me research the conversion rates for the pound versus the US dollar. Let me research the best time to go. Let me do all of this research and let me create this whole big book that's like 50 pages long with all the research that I've gathered and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's the process a lot of people go through is like, and that's like the business plan and all this stuff. For me, I'm like, okay, I would like to visit the UK. Let me go buy a ticket.
Yeah.
And let me get on the plane and let me land in the UK and let me figure this stuff out when I'm there and meet cool people and eat some really good food. I don't know, fish and chips. I don't know. Was it some good shepherd's pie? And let me go live this experience as soon as possible to now. And you're going to make mistakes that way, but you're going to get things done a lot faster. You're going to learn a lot quicker. You're going to live the experience like close to now, and it's just going to be a much more fulfilling thing. I'm not saying that you don't have to do some research when you're starting, but just don't get bogged down in the 50-page business plan and demographics and all this stuff. All that stuff does is it makes you think that you're doing something when people like me and the people that I work with, we are already like by day 30, we're already saying, okay, we should be making money by day 30. Not we should have a business plan done by day 30. You know what I'm saying? And that whole mindset has completely changed how we do business, and we have made a lot more money just getting the thing done.
Yeah, I know, I love that, because I think I've found that if people think about something too much, they give themselves the chance to think themselves out of doing that process.
Yes.
I think as humans, we tend to flip on the negative side of the thought pattern far too often. And given half a chance, anyone's going to go there quite happily and talk themselves out of doing anything. So that's great advice, really good advice. And lastly, where can people find you online and how can they get in touch with you? Yeah,
so online, the place I hang out the most is our Facebook group. It's called Groove Learning, GROOVE, and the word learning. On Facebook, I'm there every single day. And they can also email me at rohan@grooveliving.com. And that's my personal email. And, I'm happy to respond and chat with people there as well.
Cool, brilliant. Rohan, thank you so much for your time today. Love your story, and I love everything you've done with your businesses. So I hope everyone got a lot from that, and thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate all these amazing questions, and it's been fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you later. Goodbye. Well, as promised, guys, that was an amazing show. Thank you again so much to Rohan for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure interviewing today, my friends, so thank you for joining us. Guys, all the links that Rohan mentioned there are going to be in the show notes, so don't worry about trying to jot down the spelling and everything else. Just click the links below and it'll take you straight through to all the links that Rohan mentioned when going through the end of the interview there. Now, this is a very exciting time for me in the podcast because it's still very early on in the stages of its development. Now, I've already conducted a lot more interviews and there's so much more content coming your way with some great guys, and my mission is to get in that new and noteworthy section of iTunes. So for me, one thing that I would really appreciate, and if you actually enjoyed the show and you like the content I'm putting out there, it would mean the world to me if you could just go to the link to my podcast in iTunes and just rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, because it will take 5 minutes of your time and it will just make that much of a difference and get me in that new and noteworthy section. Because if I get in there, guys, and I start getting more traffic to this podcast, I can start getting bigger names onto this show as well. Now, not that the names that we're getting on aren't big. The guys we're interviewing are giving out so much value. I mean, just listen to what Rohan gave us there. It was an unbelievable interview. And for me to carry on and moving forward and getting a lot more people onto this show and making it as diverse as possible so it appeals to everybody, I need that support. And so if you could just do that'd be amazing, guys. I'd really appreciate it if you could get onto there. So go to MyCoda Podcast in the iTunes library. If you could rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and that would just mean the world to me, and I'd really appreciate that. Also, guys, if you are thinking of any questions that you might want to ask, or you'd want me to ask in these interviews, then just get in touch with us, okay? So you can get me at info@mycoda.net, or you can get me up on Facebook. You've got Sam Payne. I've got 2 pages now, guys. I've got my personal page and my business page. Just hit me up on both of those. You've also got the MyCoda Facebook page. There's so many ways for you to get in touch with me. Just ping me a message and I'll get the questions out to the guys I'm interviewing. Also, if you subscribe to the MyCoda mailing list, I've got tons of awesome content going out in that mailing list that no one else is getting access to, okay? So it's exclusive for my subscribers and it's all absolutely free. Yeah, you don't have to pay a penny for that content, but it is the best content that I'm putting out purely for the subscribers of MyCoda. So if you want to get onto that, guys, hit MyCoda, not info, that's the email. Go to mycoda.net, okay, mycoda.net. And just subscribe to us, to the mailing list from there, guys. And that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm very appreciative of your time, okay? I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you for the next session of the MyCoda Podcast.